What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the new Brie Larson film, Free Fire. Free Fire is directed by Ben Wheatley, stars Sharlto Copley, Brie Larson, Armie Hammer, and Cillian Murphy. It tells the story of a South African arms dealer who, when meeting up with members of the Irish Republican Army in the 1970s, is there to sell them weapons. And when something goes wrong during their meeting, basically there is a 90-minute firefight that we get to see inside of this warehouse, where they have boxes of the weapons they were trying to sell, along with freelance people showing up, and all of these different things happening while there's a constant conversation between both sides along with their companions. So you have Sharlto Copley and Armie Hammer on one side, and then you have Cillian Murphy and other members of the Irish team on the other, and they both sort of have this funny repartee with each other while they're also talking to basically their enemies in this fight. The script for this film is interesting. Based on the way I had to describe the plot, it's a difficult thing to really explain because there's a lot of little intricacies involved. This film is by far, I think, easily described as a contained action movie, which isn't something you get very often. It's very, very emotional and intimate. Not intimate in a romantic manner, but intimate in the fact that this movie is really just 10 people inside of a warehouse and 5 of them are trying to kill the other 5. All of the cast does a pretty solid job in this film. I think Cillian Murphy and Armie Hammer are the two standouts. They both really embrace their roles, and they're both funny, but they also really sell the action sequences throughout the film. I thought Copley did a good job. He, I think, always sort of has a little bit of a comedic aesthetic to whatever character he is playing, and that really pulled through in this one, and I thought that he was very funny in the film, and he also worked very well in the action sequences throughout. Now, this story isn't something that you easily make last 90 minutes. Most shootouts in films are like maybe 5 or 10 minutes unless it's a big climax in like a war movie. So the fact that this movie is basically, it's 90 minutes long and almost all of that 90 minutes is a firefight makes for an interesting idea that could very easily fail, and this movie surprisingly makes it work. And it's mostly because the cast has really good chemistry with each other. They all sort of bounce off of each other in the scenes, and it feels very natural throughout the film. None of it felt like forced dialogue or like it wasn't something that fit the character. They all very, at times emotionally and comedically, were able to bounce off of each other to make for an interesting 90 minutes. This movie is also very much old school. It doesn't really have anything in it that's very special effects or CGI. It's a small film. It has a cast of, like I said, about 10 to 15 people maybe. All of the things that would normally be CGI in your modern action film are practical here. The blood is all practical. All of the weapons seem to be practical, like they're actually firing blanks from guns. And it also has a sense of realism to it with the amount of times people just miss what they're shooting at, and people kind of just get like winged by getting shot in the shoulder and stuff like that, and it's funny even though it's a serious idea. The main issue with this film is just two things that go together. It's the direction from Ben Wheatley. He doesn't necessarily do a bad job when it comes to all of the sequences that involve the shooting or the action or hand-to-hand combat. None of it's shaky. It all looks good. It's all very fitting for what it's supposed to be. However, the big issue with his direction is this whole movie is contained. Like I said, it's a contained action movie, and it's all inside of this one warehouse. But we don't get the master shot of this warehouse, so we understand where everything is. So it's very, very difficult to understand where certain characters are in comparison to others, and how they see each other, what the line of sights are, anything like that, because it never gives us that one really wide shot to tell us the layout of this whole warehouse. The warehouse is almost another character in this film because of the role it plays for everyone involved. It's their cover, it's where they are fighting, it's where they have to worry about what could just be laying around on the ground that the enemy could use against them type of place. But it never gets its own proper development like a character does. It's just sort of left and we're supposed to figure it out, but it can be very confusing when you're watching the scene and a character is shooting, but you don't know who they're shooting at because you can't can't place them inside this warehouse to where they'd be able to see whoever they're shooting at, and it caused a lot of issues. And the one other small thing that needs to be pointed out is Brie Larson. She's a phenomenal actress, but she just really wasn't that great in this movie, and her character doesn't have a lot to do to start with, but she just felt pretty wooden in most of her dialogue, and most of her just on-screen presence wasn't very fun or entertaining. It was just sort of there. She does have her moments in the film where she sort of shines, but as a whole, I felt kind of just like, why did they spend the money to hire Brie Larson for this role when you could have gotten really anybody to do it? I'm gonna give Free Fire a B-. It's a fun, contained thriller, but it doesn't really have a ton of rewatchability, and the way it's all set up in its direction makes it so it's rather confusing. Maybe if you see it multiple times, all of a sudden you'd know the layout of the warehouse very well, but it seems like for where this film takes place and the premise it has, the warehouse really should have been brought into bigger light so we could understand the entire setting that the film was taking place in. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of Free Fire. I actually did my first ever collaboration earlier this week, so that video will be in the description down below. I did it with one of my friends. We're basically playing a game where we guess the Rotten Tomato scores of old films, and then whoever the loser is gets chocolate sauce or eggs or something smashed on their head. It was a lot of fun to film, so please check that out in the description down below, and I hope to see you guys later.